All right there. Hello, everyone. Can you guys all hear me, see me okay?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hello.
Hey there. Cool. So we'll get started in just a sec. See if anyone else logs on here. So, yeah. So for today, we will go over a few other our lecture topics. I'll add just a few extra different types of shots that you guys will be able to use in that first project. I'll give a quick demo kind of that first project, kind of my expectations, and I'll show you some student examples from last summer. And then we will talk a little bit about figure drawing, how to draw people, which is going to be important basically for this whole quarter for the most part. So yeah, so just to start, are you guys all taking a look at the first project on Canvas? Have you guys seen that? Been able to see that? Okay. Right here, this page. Cool. Thank you, Trinity. So this should hopefully have all the directions for what I am looking for it. If you have any questions about anything on here, please let me know, or if anything is unclear after you've looked this over, let me know and I'm happy to explain anything. I changed the requirements rather than just being 30 frames for the story, 25 to 35. So if your story doesn't fit exactly in that 30 frame size, you can go a little under or a little over. Just make sure that you tell that entire story, okay? But it should all be on here, and I want the work submitted as a PDF file, meaning it's like, I'll show you in the samples in a little bit, but it's like 4 pages all stitched together as one file. And here is a video showing how to do that. So that's that episode 6 on our video playlist right here. So this one shows you 2 different ways to save it as a PDF file. One is using Adobe Illustrator. So if some people have taken Art 109, you're more familiar with Adobe Illustrator, or if you already have Illustrator installed on your computer, you can do it through Illustrator. I also show you a website that allows you to turn JPEGs into a PDF file. So there's 2 different ways to do that, and you can decide which way will be best for you. If you have Illustrator installed, I suggest doing it with Illustrator because that's kind of the more professional way to do it. But using the website should be fine as well.
I have a question. I have gone through this. It's okay if we go and find out like black and white pictures, like characters, and we can use it in our history. Since it's like I'm not good at drawing, but I can draw something to tell a story. But my problem with drawing the face or like.
Yeah. No, I expect these to all be drawings. Even if they're very simple, very crude, very rough drawings, that's okay. So
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
yeah,
I know
this is my concern.
Yeah, I don't. Everyone is at a different level of drawing, but my general expectation is that you just find a way to get that drawing on the page. So here's like a basic stick figure. I don't want to see stick figures. Unfortunately, you don't learn a lot from that. But what you can do is very simple. I call them shape figures. So just using circle, then like a rectangle for a body rather than just a line, and then rectangles for legs. You do ovals for feet, rectangles for arms. So that you can do your drawings this simple, and you can just do simple faces to get different facial expressions. So we'll do some drawing exercises today to help you be able to draw people and things in different ways. But you can definitely look at pictures that help you draw different things. And if you are, you're not as confident with your drawing, just keep it really simple for the most part. So all these faces here, even though they're very simple and it doesn't take, all you guys can draw these sorts of faces. They're relatively simple to draw. And everyone should be, and they show emotion. So that's the main thing, is that you can see what's going on in that frame. So if you're drawing faces, you can draw like that. You know, if you're drawing a full body, drawing someone running. Like that, so I can see that someone is running. Okay, even though it doesn't have as many details, as long as you can kind of see what's going on and see what the character is doing. And I would rather have you, you know, try to do your drawing, even if it doesn't come out that well, than to like just not do it. So that goes for anyone that's kind of thinking about how to handle the drawings for that first project. So there are a lot of artists that, you know, have a very crude, very simplified style, but being able to draw well or draw really nicely doesn't necessarily mean that you have good story with your drawing. So our goals is for this project, and basically all our projects, is to tell a story with our drawing. So that's basically illustration. So you're telling a story with that drawing. So it doesn't matter how good or bad you draw, as long as you're able to tell a story with that. All right, have people gotten Photoshopped installed on their computers? Has everyone done that okay? Follow those steps from the email from Adobe. Okay, good. So yeah, if you have issues with that, just let me know before we get too much further along in the class. Have people got tablets? People that needed to check out tablets, have people got those? Tablets have came, people?
Still in the middle of trying to get that.
Okay, but you've talked to Aaron and emailed him? Looks like some are coming today. Cool, so as long as that's in the works, so yeah, we won't need the tablets for this first project. But for the next project, the sooner you can get those set up, as soon as you get those, just start to plug them into your computer, see if you can get it to work, and kind of watch those basic videos, and making sure you understand the basic tools of Illustrator or Photoshop, not Illustrator. What else? So hey, did you guys enjoy that drawing challenge from last week?
Yes.
Good.
Yes.
Cool. I was really happy with what you guys came up with, and I hope you guys always take the chance to scroll through, look at each other's work, and look at the comments that I make. And you guys can feel free to add comments as well. You know, so I really like your style. That medium shot really worked well. Interesting choice for focal points, things like that. Because looking at each other's work is definitely something that we miss, not being in a classroom together. So the more you can look at each other's work, you can get, you know, inspiration and ideas from each other. You can steal ideas. You're not going to steal someone's entire story or entire style, but you can steal little bits and stuff from people to use as inspiration for your own work. So whenever we have these drawing challenges, just make sure you take a look at what everyone is working on. Because that can kind of, I mean, we're trying to recreate what we can do as an in-person classroom, even if we're not actually in person with each other. So there will be another drawing challenge this week. It will have to do with figure drawing and how to draw people, and just some basic ways to practice that to just really get you guys drawing and get you more comfortable with sketching and drawing quickly and things like that.
It's okay if we do it pen and with a pencil paper always.
Yep, pencil and paper. I expect like most of the drawing challenges just to be done in your sketchbook. Some people are set up to sketch digitally. So if you want to sketch digitally on either with like an iPad or with your drawing tablet in Photoshop, you can do that as well. But as long as you're drawing, as long as you're practicing, that's the main goal of the drawing challenges, because that's the only way to get better at drawing, is to do it and to force yourself to do it, even if, you know, you're uncomfortable doing it, or it's hard or tricky or a challenge. Just doing it as much as you can will help you get better, and it will help you with this class, is just getting more comfortable doing lots of drawings. And with those drawing challenges, don't worry about them being perfect. So let them be sketchy, let them be rough, let them be kind of messy. So if they're not perfect, that's completely fine. And that's kind of what I expect from the drawing challenges, is that they're imperfect drawings, but those will help you get better and improve slowly. Okay, I think that is good. So yeah, just look out for that. I'll send you guys a message tomorrow about the drawing challenge, and then the project 01 is due next Wednesday, I believe. So there will be a chance during next class, if you have any last minute questions on the project before it's due, you can ask that during next class. Okay. Any other questions in general about the class or project 1 or the drawing challenges before we move on? Okay. And like I said, did I mention, so this file is available for download too, if you want to use this for your storyboard sequence. So this file right here is on Canvas, right here, storyboardframes.jpg. So I find it easier to have my frames like pre-drawn already. So you guys can use this file and you can download it and print it off if you want to sketch on paper, or you can import this file, open it in Photoshop if you want to sketch digitally here. But when you work on the first project, make sure you label these 1, 2, 3, 4, so your shots are numbered. And it's a little easier to talk about for critiques and stuff. Okay, so few extra shots. So there's just a few more shots I want to make sure. So the biggest thing I noticed on the drawing challenges, where you guys were a little mixed up on medium shot and a full shot. So it's not really a big deal, but this is just something I noticed on on a few different people's drawing challenges. So that full shot, you see the full figure. So it's basically head to toe of a person. So that allows you to see the full movement of the character. You get to see a full idea of how the character dresses, how they stand, how they carry themselves. If they're doing an action, it allows you to see the action of their movement. So that full shot is basically just seeing the full figure of a person. And for medium shot, that is about the waist up of a person. So it's a little bit closer, and you're going to see just the waist up. So it's kind of in between a full shot and a close up. So just as a general idea, just so you know the difference of those, it's not really that big a difference, or that big a deal, as long as you're using both those different shots. But I just want to make sure you guys had those all defined correctly as we start to work on this project. So medium, waist up, full shot, the full figure, the full body of a person. Okay. Oh, Pierre, good question. Pierre was just asked about free brushes. I think I have some I can export for you guys. Yeah. So I'll export some of these brushes actually after class today. And these are some common ones that I use. So you guys can have these as well. But for a lot of time, just for the basic sketching, I just use these general brushes, the hard round pressure size, just for doing any sort of basic drawing. As you're working. So this is just a good like general sketching brush. And then I will give you guys, I can export some of these brushes These are some pencil and inking brushes, as well as these are some painting type texture brushes. So I'll try and export those and give you guys both of them. But I don't actually know a place to download some free ones. I would just say Google search different things. And Trinity asked, do you want us to label the type of shot on each frame? So for your project, Trinity, that's probably the question. No, you don't need to label each one, as long as you just make sure you're using a variety of different shots. So wide shot, close up, medium, full, and things like that. Oh, good. Good comment there. Yeah, search for the type of program. So free Photoshop brushes is what you would want to look for. So they're specifically for Photoshop. Okay, so medium versus full. What is he? Oh, eye level shot. Oops. Eye level shot is a standard calm shot. So it's used for basically lots of times establishing shots. It's used for shots where you don't want a whole lot of drama. So we talked about the up shot and the down shot last week, where you're literally pointing the camera up at something or holding the camera up and point it down. Eye level shot is where it's just straight across and it's very calm. So it's all the characters in the shot, and it's literally holding the camera. If you're working with a real camera or a film camera, you're holding it at your own eye level. And the reason that's so calm and kind of regular is because that's how we are used to seeing the world in everyday activities. So we're not used to those up angles and down, up shots and down shots. So just keeping that shot calm. So I will usually start with an eye level shot in the calmer part of whatever story I'm telling, and then go to a up shot or down shot for action, moments of action or moments of drama and excitement in the story. So we talked about those shots like up shot, down shot, and Dutch tilt. Those things should be reserved for dramatic moments or action moments in your story. Okay. And a good way to execute that eye level is just kind of put a line through your composition, and everyone's heads should line up with that line. And that's a very easy way to draw eye level shots. Okay. So if everyone's about the same height, if you have little kids, they will be below that eye level, or a really tall person, they will be above that eye level. But just keeping everything flat and straight is a good way to get a very calm shot. And we'll go over perspective one of these days here that I'm drawing right now, but we will get there. Okay, eye level shots, silhouette. Again, this is for dramatic or action moments. And this is basically where you draw your entire scene just using silhouette shapes. So maybe it's the moment where a character's leaping between two buildings. You can draw this just as a silhouette there. And it adds a nice sense of drama to it. And it really utilizes dark values well because it eliminates a lot of details, and it just lets you focus on the basic silhouette shapes of that scene. So you usually don't want to do this sort of shot first because there's not a lot of details in there. So you want to do this after you've done an establishing shot so people know where the location is. You want to do this after you've done a close-up of your character so they know what this character is and what the character looks like and what the character may be doing, how they're moving around. And you want to make sure that you design your silhouettes in a way where you can still tell what is going on in that scene. Okay, so you can combine that silhouette with maybe a Dutch tilt. But again, reserve that silhouette type shot for a moment of action or a moment of drama in your story. And another thing that is very good to think about, especially for clarity of storytelling. So remember, we want our story to be clear to whoever is looking at it or reading it. Draw transitions. So basically, anytime a character changes where they are or what they are doing, you want to illustrate that. So a very simple one is just a character coming in a door or coming into a new room. You want to draw that character as they're stepping through the door. Okay. So now the viewer understands, okay, this person came in from the outside. Okay, so they're coming in that door. Or if a character is sitting in a chair and then they stand up, you want to draw them in that transition as they're standing. This is a very poorly drawn version of someone standing up, but as long as you can get what is going on here. So someone getting up out of the chair, someone walking into the doorway. So anytime something changes in a scene, that's when kind of the viewer can be confused by what's going on. And our goal as storytellers, as visual storytellers, is to make sure that the viewer never gets confused. So drawing those transitions is a good way to ensure that the viewer does not get confused when they are looking at your story or reading your story as well.
Can we write a little bit what is going on?
You mean like here to kind of tell what's going on, or like in the frame?
No, the picture, like he's standing up, like kind of he's getting inside, like kind of like a little bit of what is going on.
You can kind of include that if you want, but it should still, the picture should be doing most of the work. So if you want to include a little written description by your frame, that's okay. But you should be able to tell what's going on even without any written description. So I would include that kind of the written description down here, almost to help yourself more, to say, okay, the character A stands up from the chair. And so that's just kind of knowing to you in your mind, okay, I have to show character A standing up here. Okay. So those are just those extra shots. Did everyone sketch their own version of these different shots? Okay, so for project 1, the first step is to write a short story. Has anyone decided on what short story they are going to do for the project? So it should be based on your real life, but really just use that as a jumping off point. So you can change anything. Don't worry about like sticking to reality or sticking to what really happened. Make any changes to make it more interesting. You can change characters around. You can change the genre of the story. You can make it like super scary or a superhero story or whatever. But use that something in your real life to make it more, or to help get that initial idea and get the ball rolling. Has anyone decided on what they want to do for that first project? Yeah, Trini, that's a good idea. So adding crazy expressions or fantasy, a basic day at work. So as a general storytelling rule, has anyone written stories before, either just for themselves or for different projects? done any like just basic story writing in high school a little bit? Emily has. There you go. Yeah, horror experience would be great. The most important thing I think about when writing a story, whether a long story. Oh, yeah, yeah, Chevelle, you could do something that's a nightmare kind of if it's inspired by what happens in your real life for sure. The most helpful thing for me when I'm writing a story where it's if it's a very simple, like 2-sentence long story, or if it's a longer one, just having a beginning, middle, and end. So just try and have these very basic things when you're coming up with your story. And it can be a very simplified beginning, middle, and end. So beginning, you learn intro to the characters, and intro to location. So this is your intro to location will basically be your establishing shot. And your intro to characters, your character will probably be in that establishing shot. And you also probably want to go into a close-up to show the viewer who that character is. In the middle, the most simple way to help tell a good story is a problem happens. So something happens to that character, some sort of problem arises, a challenge happens that they have to overcome. This could be very, very simple, you know, a challenge, I lost my keys. Challenge, I have to catch the bus that's zooming away. Or it can be an epic challenge, like, you know, you have to save the world from a meteor. So all, you know, stories, big and small, simple and complicated, use this basic structure. But having some sort of challenge or a problem that your character has to solve or overcome. And then the end is the climax, which is usually solving the problem. Okay. So when you're deciding on what story you want to illustrate and what basic story to write down, think about the 3-act structure for a story. Okay, beginning, middle, and end. What sort of problem? Again, this can be very, very simple everyday stuff, or you can make it more epic and exciting. However, whatever direction you want to take it, whatever direction is more inspiring or interesting for you to draw. And so I want you to write this down as a very short paragraph, okay? It might be, you know, just 1 or 2 sentences. It might be 2 or 3 paragraphs, but I want you to write the story down in words first. So you as the artist, you're taking these words and then you're translating those words into pictures. So that's kind of our goal here, is to translate this story that's told orally, told with words, and then translate it to pictures, okay? Does that make sense for basic type of story to choose for project 1? Any questions on that? Okay. So I'll just do a very quick demo. So this is a very quick little short story I wrote. So I recommend writing this as you're writing these down, you can write in 3rd person, because then the character is no longer like you, it's a new person. So I said, Andrew was driving along a long road on a road trip. Then a bee got inside the car. Andrew and his dog swiped at the bee, trying to avoid getting stung. This causes him to swerve and almost hit some cars and people. He's able to pull over, run out of the car, and the bee finally flew away. So this is a story that happened to me. Not nearly this dramatic. It was much more simple and only took about 30 seconds in real life. That I did not swerve into oncoming traffic and almost hit people. So I added that for some excitement and to add some more action and more drama to the story, okay? So don't worry about what happened in reality. Worry about making it something that's fun to draw and just using that as a jumping off point. Oops. So what I would then do is have that story there, and then I will use this written text and start to illustrate. So Andrew was driving along a long road on a road trip. So I need an establishing shot there. So some sort of long road on the road trip. How do I want to show that to the viewer? So a long road here. Have a car here. What type of car? So now once I start to draw this, it's no longer me. This is now a character. So what type of car does this character drive? Where is this story taking place? I can make all those decisions to work better for the story itself. Start with that establishing shot. Okay, so then maybe I want to go closer. I want to see the car. So maybe we do a full shot of the car where I see the full car. And we can see a person in here. We don't know who the person is yet. Maybe we see the dog over here. And then we can go into a close-up on the people. So we get character A. And we see the dog over here. We're still inside the car. And then I refer back to the story as we go. So I can choose now if I want to maybe just show another close-up. Maybe we see the dog hanging his head out of the car. Maybe we see how happy the character is driving. Maybe we show hand on the radio, putting on music. So I can choose to linger just on this part of the story a little bit to show how they're doing their road trip, what sort of car they're in. Maybe they got snacks and stuff all over the car. And then eventually I will have to go and introduce this bee getting inside of the car. I'll have to show them swiping, trying to not get stung, swerving around on the road. And then the whole story will go from there. But it's basically having your text first, and then what type of shots, how are you going to illustrate that? And again, as you're working, it will be helpful to label this. Just number those shots as you're working. Any questions on kind of how to move, how to attack this first project? All right, let me show you some examples from last quarter. Oh, back to the story structure thing. A very common thing that people do. No waking up. So don't start your story with your character in bed, waking up. That's how every person has started their life. And it's generally not very interesting. So start with them in a scene or start in action. So if you want to draw, someone trying to catch the bus to get to work, you don't need to show them waking up, getting out of bed, getting dressed. Show them already walking towards that bus to try and get to work. For my version of the story, I didn't have the character wake up in a hotel, get into the car and start driving on the road trip. They were already driving along the road. So just kind of start the story in the middle of what's going on. Try to avoid that waking up in bed start, because I see that a whole bunch in student stories. I know I've done that a bunch in stories that I've written before. So that's just a general thing when doing storytelling. Just avoid that waking up thing in the morning. Okay, let's see. Okay, so here is Braden's from last summer. So here's the written description. So I do want to see that written description of your story. The story is based on a day when a hawk tried to kill one of my bunnies right in front of me. While she was hopping around outside, I was able to chase the hawk away and save my bunny. But for the sake of the story, I dramatized it to see what it would have been like to have if the hawk had not flown away instantly. So she's told the story and then told a little bit of the drama. You guys don't have to say I dramatized the story to show what it would look like if the hawk had not flown away instantly. You can just say the hawk didn't leave and I had to battle it or whatever. So here's a really nice piece here. So establishing shot. We got a house kind of in the woods. We got a little bunny den over here. So remember that establishing shot, put as much information as you can into the establishing shot. So we got a house, we got where the bunnies live, we have that it's in the forest, and then they move a little bit closer. This is still a wide shot, but we have a focal point character. Then the full shot, close up of the bunny, close up of the character, and then we're introduced to the hawk. The hawk sees the bunny, close up on the hawk, and then she waits until panel 9 before that dramatic up angle. So look at that dramatic up angle to make the hawk look big and scary and powerful. We get the hawk swooping down, close up on the bunny to show that fear and scared feeling in the bunny. Nice dramatic Dutch tilt for some action. And then she comes out back to a wide shot to explain where the characters are. And we have her battling the hawk. And she saves the bunny. So that's a nice little story. And she said, obviously, this action stuff was more exaggerated. Yeah, Trinity said, could she show a little ring for her establishing shot to suggest like an alarm clock and then have the person running out of the door? Yeah, that's kind of a nice way to just fast forward and show the idea that someone's getting up and leaving in the morning. So you're not showing the person actually getting out of bed, putting on their clothes, turning off the alarm clock. You're just showing that ring sound effect and then someone running out of the door. That's a good way to do it, Trinity. Where's another one? Here's Alicia's. She included some of her reference photos for the characters. So Alicia has a waking up shot. So she didn't need this waking up shot in bed. She could have just started with, again, running out of the house, getting in the car. But she has a nice, very clean style here. Lots of eye level shots, close-ups, moving around, wide shots, showing them winning prizes, playing the games, excitement shots to tell that story. But moving between close-ups, wide shots, medium shots. But make sure you include that description, a little title as well. He's Anthony's. But yeah, he has going out, leaving on a road trip with the dog, run into a bear, and then saving the dog, running away, getting safe. This one's about family cat trying to run and be late for catching an airplane. Okay. Any questions on project one? Things I'm looking for? So just do your best. Again, I'm not going to be grading about like how good your drawings are as long as you're using different types of shots. Anything else to avoid? That's a good question. Yeah, trendy and everyone, yeah, just avoid using the same type of shot over and over. So you don't want to go close up, close up, close up, close up, close up. Or you don't want to go wide shot, wide shot, wide shot, wide shot, wide shot. Just avoid that and try and mix them up as best you can. And a good way to kind of test your story is to show it to someone else. So you can show it to a friend or family member and have them see if they can tell what is going on in your story before you turn it in. And you guys can please always, you can email me your work in progress anytime. You can email me rough sketches. You can email me your story before you turn it in. If you want feedback, I will check my email most days during the week, Monday to Friday. So if you ever have questions or want me to look over something before you turn it in, please just get in touch with me. And I am happy to do that and look it over and give you guys feedback before the due date. So usually people that do the best on the projects in my classes check in at some point before it's due, just to be to get feedback on it and learn what they can improve before they turn it in, basically. And yeah, Kevin, this can be done in your sketchbook, or if you want to practice sketching digitally, you can sketch directly on in Photoshop, so that you can do that with whatever you're more comfortable with. Yeah, any other questions on that before we get into talking about figure drawing? Sure, Valentina, yeah. She was asking if she can fast forward a few years in the story. If it works for your story, yeah. If it works at the beginning, middle, and end, you know, maybe the beginning was set 4 years ago where you establish the character wants to, you know, get into a certain college, and then 4 years later it shows them how they're able to get into that college or something like that. Yeah. So if fast forwarding makes sense in your story, flashback or flash forward, that is completely fine. You can just like write, you know, you can have a frame that says in your story that says, you know, 4 years later or whatever as one of your frames. So just imagine that each one of these frames is like a frame, a shot in a movie or a shot in a comic book to help tell that story. Yeah, any other questions? Yeah, it'll be turned in that PDF file that looks how those examples are that I showed you, and that video in Canvas kind of shows you 2 different ways to save the PDF file. But PDF files are used, that's how I turn in my work for professional assignments. That's how I, you know, turn in work when I'm applying to jobs or applying to shows, things like that. So it is good to know how to save your work as a PDF file. Those are the best files to use for print. If you ever want to print your work off from digital to a printed work, using a PDF file is the best way to do that. So just, we'll kind of practice how to get everything saved on this first project, and that's how we'll do it on the next projects as well. Okay, let's talk a little bit about figure drawing. If any other questions come up, just let me know as I'm chatting or at the end of class too. Figure drawing. Has anyone ever taken a figure drawing class where you're drawing people? Has anyone ever drawn a live model before? Good, a couple people there. So figure drawing is very important for us. If you're bad at people, this is good practice to get better. So presumably most of our stories will involve people of some sort. So even if you're drawing animals as well, a lot of the same things overlap. But you probably won't just have a story about one object over and over. So you're going to have to draw people at some point. So I'm going to give you guys some general rules for drawing people and some ways to practice drawing people. So really just the practice of it. And if you can practice drawing people, you can draw lots of different things. Since people are so difficult to draw, being able to draw people is just a really good practice. And if you can draw a person, then you can draw, you know, a mug on a counter, because the mug will feel very simple after you have drawn people. But since people are usually the subject matter of our stories and the characters of our stories, it is important to be able to draw them in different ways and doing different things. And I'll try and make this a very general type of figure drawing so that can be applied to different styles. So some people will be drawing more realistically. Some people are more simplified and cartoony. Some people are very rough. Some people are very smooth and stylized, but these are very general rules for figure drawing that hopefully everyone can use. And yes, Mags, where she said, it kind of starts bad at first, but you get a hang of it, definitely. I remember some of my first figure drawing classes I took in art school. Looking back at those drawings, I didn't know what I was doing, but you have to go through those bad ones in order to get better. And hopefully it can be something fun. It's probably my favorite thing as an artist is drawing people. It's one of the things I enjoy the most, because you have such a range of different types of people you can draw, and different sorts of actions and things that you can draw as well with people. Okay, so one of the biggest things with drawing people I like to think about are the three masses. And that is the head, the chest, and the hips. Yeah, facial expressions. That's a good one. I'll have a note on facial expressions too, Valentina. Okay, so the head mass here. So if you have a control of these three masses, a lot of your figure drawing will be easier. So the head, the chest, and the hips. So what these three masses do will kind of define the overall pose that you are drawing. So here it is, the view from the front, then the view from the side. So you guys just try and draw along with these the best you can, even if you're just doing a quick version of it. So when I look at a person to draw, or I'm trying to think of a pose to draw, these are the three, I'm always thinking about these three masses and how they relate to one another. And if you can kind of figure out how to draw those three masses, that will allow you to draw a lot of different poses. So thinking about how these three masses relate to each other and how they move will help you draw a lot of different poses. And then basic proportions of a person. So this is like Joe, average person, Joe, average character. Has anyone ever looked at those drawing books where it has like the head is 1/8 of the height, and you have to multiply the head by 8 times to get the overall height of the ideal person? There's a whole bunch of different proportion measurements you can use for drawing people. I find those ones that break it down in kind of complicated proportions related to the overall size, not that helpful. I find one very simple proportion that helps me is about the legs are about 1/2 of the height. Why does this say this? 1/2. So right here at the top of the legs, that is about 1/2 of your height. And that's kind of the main thing that I use when drawing people to figure out if the legs are too long or too short. So these three masses will sit here on the top half, and then the legs are that bottom half of people. And yeah, so there are different ones you'll see in different art books, and they're not wrong where it says, the height, that the head is 1/8 of the height, and you have to divide the entire height of the body into 8 sections. If you see those in other books and that's helpful for you, definitely use that. I find it much easier to just simplify and think about the 1/2. Okay, is the upper three masses 1/2 of the overall height? That is a really good way to just kind of check in and see if your people are working there. And again, this is like your Joe average character proportions. So it's good to be aware of that, because then you can change those proportions if you want to do something different. So maybe you have a more cartoony look. You have kind of this rounder character with kind of short, squat three masses there. Then I can play around and put really short legs on here. But that can be fun to draw once you know that this is the ideal. Then you can mess around and have fun with those proportions and exaggerate them. Or you can make your one character, if you want your character to be like a really tall, skinny, slender person, you can make these legs really long too and mess around with those proportions. So knowing that this 1/2 is the ideal and the average, it's much more fun to create characters with really long legs. The short legs make the characters really round, really skinny, really boxy, really squared off, and have fun designing those characters in different ways. But it is helpful to kind of learn those standard proportions first and then change it to make it more unique and more interesting characters for your stories. Okay, does everyone have a version of this sketch down? Okay, so here's a very important concept for figure drawing. Squash and stretch. So this is a figure drawing concept. It's used a lot in animation. I think it was probably originally defined by some old Disney animators to help draw action and help draw convincing movements in characters. So squash and stretch is just basically looking for squash and stretch when you are drawing your people. Okay. So it's especially used when drawing action and things like that. So, and especially squash and stretch between the three masses. So there's my head mass. So my chest box here. So now I want to make this, give this pose some energy. So I want to create a squash right here. So you see how this corner here between those two masses is squashed. And then on the other side, it's stretched. So everyone just kind of bend your chest one way or the other. And you can feel on your own body where it squashes and stretches. So right here, it's going to squash in, meaning those muscles kind of flex and tense up. And on the other side, they'll stretch out. And this will help you to create action and movement in your poses. okay? So this can come from just drawing the head, even just the head. When you tilt that head back, you'll get a stretch on the front of the neck and that squash on the back of the neck. So here you got a squash back there and a stretch back there. Someone's running here, you got a stretch there at the front of the back and a squash right here. Squash there and stretch there. So that is definitely something you want to look for if you're observing figure drawing or if you're inventing poses for your characters to do. You're drawing like a flexed arm. You got a stretch around the back here and then a squash inside. So there will always be a corresponding squash and stretch with any pose you're drawing, okay? So looking for that and trying to identify that in your poses is going to be very helpful and get a sense of movement in your poses. So here, so I'm bending over to grab this box, stretch there and squash there in the front. And usually it will be between those three masses in one way or another. So we'll look for some of these in just a sec when we practice some figure drawing. Okay, so we'll come back to this and look at some photos to draw from also. Okay, so when you're drawing, your character's doing an action. You want that action to be very clear to the viewer. So you want them to be able to tell what is going on. And a good way to do that is to help draw a line of action and to exaggerate your poses. So if someone's running, and use diagonals to show action. So if someone's running, you don't want them to be running like this. This is a little too stiff and too straight up and down, right? That kind of looks like someone's running, but maybe they're walking, maybe they're jogging. It's hard to tell. So what I want to do to help make that pose better is use some diagonals and use a good line of action. So I usually like to put this line of action on a good diagonal. And this will help me to exaggerate this running pose. So I want to exaggerate it by using diagonals. So right in this one, the head is straight up and down, the chest is straight up and down, and the hips are straight up and down. But if I want to put this all on a diagonal, use some squash and stretch here, squash there, stretch there, and put all these limbs on diagonals as well. This has a much better sense of movement and sense of action there to really explain to the viewer what is going on when they are looking at your drawing. Oops. It's the same thing if you want to draw someone like jumping. Again, this pose, technically they could be jumping in this pose. Make them off the ground a little bit, but it's not very exaggerated and it doesn't have many diagonals in it. And it doesn't have as much action or movement or even clarity to the viewer to really see what's going on here. So if I wanted to draw someone jumping, I could really exaggerate that. To help show that movement more clearly. Okay, so just think about really exaggerating those poses. And again, a good way to test it is by asking someone around you. So say, can you tell what this character is doing? Okay. I'm gonna draw someone kicking. So yeah, this person here is technically kicking. You can see that. But to make it more interesting, think about having a diagonal line of action, creating some squash and stretching here. Now this pose is a lot more exciting because of the diagonals, because of that line of action and exaggerating that pose. And so for a lot of these poses, if you're having trouble figuring it out, feel free to use photos. So you can look up, Google search for people running or people jumping or people kicking, but what can be even better is taking pictures of yourself if you need to do that. So I have a bunch of weird pictures of me doing different action poses to help me figure out how to draw things that are difficult to draw. So anytime you're drawing something that's tough, if you're just kind of fiddling around with it and can't figure it out, just take a picture of yourself doing that pose, throwing a punch, throwing a kick, or you can have someone else do a pose for you and take a picture of them so you can kind of see what it may look like. But that's definitely not cheating, and that's a way that people do it all the time, is taking pictures of people or things or finding pictures online to help you draw those difficult poses. So especially, you can probably draw a person standing there relatively easy. But once it gets to those more action-based poses and poses that are more difficult to draw, using photos to help with that is definitely something that you can use to help you figure stuff out. And in terms of exaggeration, coming back to those facial expressions as well. So for the head, we could have a full class just on head drawing, a full class just on figure drawing. So this is just like basic introduction for you guys. But that same 1/2 proportions that I use for the entire body of a person, I use just for the face as well. So when drawing a face for a person, find that halfway line. So what lies on that halfway line of a face? People that have taken figure drawing classes, yes, Kevin, the eyes. Right there on the 1/2 line. I know people that are less experienced with drawing typically put those eyes up a little too high. You don't want those eyes too high on the head. I know our eyes are the highest feature on our face, so we kind of think that they need to be towards the top of the head, but they are really on that 1/2 line. Does anyone know when I go follow this 1/2 line out to the edge of the head, what else is on that 1/2 line at the edge of the head? The ears, yep. So I usually just find that for the start of the year. So the start of the year will usually go up and then down, up and then down. But I use the same similar proportion, even if I'm doing like more of a cartoony style drawing. So you still use a similar idea there, whether you're drawing realistically or cartoony. And then to follow the rest of that face, since it's symmetrical, noses are really hard to draw because they're pointing at you. So for drawing a nose, I usually just try and keep it really simple, especially from a straight on view. Once you're drawing someone from the profile, then it's a lot easier to draw that nose however you want it. So it can be a big nose, small nose, whatever you want, but it's a lot easier to see that shape in the nose when you're drawing it from the side. And when you're drawing it from the front, you can kind of just keep it simple there. And if you're going to have a character that you use a lot in your story, just doing little sketches like this so you can figure out what the character looks like from the front and from the side will make your drawings easier as you're working on your story. Oh, just one more note, when adding hair to a character, the hair doesn't just come out of the top of the head like that, but it kind of sits down on top of the head. So we'll sit down here, follow that hairline, and then we'll kind of cover the head like a big cap there. And usually that hair will be a darker value than the skin, not always, obviously. Someone has really light blonde hair and dark tan skin. But for the most part, the hair can be treated as a dark shape that is darker than the skin. And then for facial expressions, exaggerate also. So try and go from someone who's mad, that's okay. But to really push that clarity to the viewer, try and make them super angry. So this is okay. This one's better. The same thing with, whatever the emotion may be. If someone's happy to their really happy. So just be very clear. And I find for facial expressions, it really helps to have a mirror by and see what happens to your face, what happens to the eyebrows, where do wrinkles form in your face, to help show those different facial expressions. And yeah, so a lot of times these extreme emotions will be reserved for those close-ups or extreme close-ups as well. So the closer you get to the viewer in terms, or to the character in terms of shot selection, so when you go in for a close-up or extreme close-up, that should be reserved for different emotional moments for the story. So if you want to show someone's really, really angry, try and use that extreme close-up. If they're just kind of angry, you can use a, a medium shot or regular close-up. But when they're really angry, maybe that's when you use that extreme close-up. Okay, one more quick note for today. Weight. Here we got a little egg. So what's the difference between these two little egg shapes right here? Which one is on the ground? So here, this one is sitting on the ground, versus that one is flying up in the air. So this is a very simple thing that can be used to help show if your character is sitting down or standing up. It's very simple, but definitely something that I try and do all the time and that I see a lot of other artists do, is just explain, is your character standing on the ground or are they going through the air? And this can be a good way to help show that action. Because when someone is running or jumping, they will be off the ground. If they're standing still or sitting, they will be on the ground. So just using that, this is called a cast shadow. Because the object casts the shadow on the ground. We're using that cast shadow to explain to the viewer what's on the ground and what's not. Okay, so using that shadow, and that cast shadow will give your figures a sense of weight. You can also do that for different objects that may be sitting on a surface or floating above the surface is a good way to do that. Okay, let me just find a quick YouTube video really quick. Okay, so this is what I will have you guys do for the drawing challenge this week. Come on. So since we don't have a real model, what you guys will do for your drawing challenge this week is draw from one of these videos. But this, I use these videos to help me draw different, or just get practice drawing people and doing figure drawing. So what you will do is watch this video in these poses. I think I'll have you do about 5 to 10 different poses. But I want you to do these quick poses that are about 30 seconds to a minute in length. And here, as I'm drawing these, I'm looking at this model over here. She's not standing still right now, but I'm looking at those three masses. So what direction is her head going? What direction is the chest going? What direction are her hips going? And if I can get those figured out, squash and stretch, then I can just add very simple legs and arms to this pose. And again, these are just practice, so I don't need them to be finished. They don't need to have a lot of details in them, but just making sure you get that pose down there, and you go pretty quick with it to practice looking for those three masses and looking for any squash and stretch in the pose. So here's another pose with some nice squash and stretch in it. So I basically just go from the head down to the feet. So what angle is this head at? What angle is the neck at? Look for that center line. Oops. And I look for that squash on this side, and a stretch on this other side. If you get these three basic shapes, then again, you can add those legs on very simply. And because they're very quick poses, each one of these poses I think is just a minute long. It forces you to look at the overall action and draw the entire figure in just 1 minute. So you don't get caught up in details. I don't want you to worry about drawing facial expressions or hair or the details of clothes or the details of muscles. I just want you to draw a quick, basic drawing that shows you how the entire pose looks. So this is what the drawing challenge will be this week, kind of doing some of these very quick poses from one of these videos, and I'll give you guys a link there. So again, head down, draw the head first. Look for that center line to help you see the movement of the three masses. Chest box, hip box, squash there, stretch there, and then very simple legs. Draw a cast shadow on the ground to show that she's on the ground, simple arms. Kind of once you get this, then if you have time, you can go back and add some anatomy details, details of clothing. Keep any facial expressions simple. But that's what you'll be doing for the drawing challenge this week. All right, so we may have another day where we go into some more details on figure drawing. Any questions on figure drawing today? Concerns, worries? Are you guys excited to draw some people? Oh, Chevelle, thank you for that. Quickposes.com. I haven't used that one, but that is a good idea. Let me see if I can find that. Oh, very cool. Yeah, that looks like a good resource. So maybe that can be used for some drawing as well. But the more you can draw people, I go out to draw friends and family sitting around the house. You can go out to the park and draw people sitting in the park, things like that. Yep, Pinterest boards, Google searches are a good way to find poses as well. I like using those YouTube videos because they're forced in time, so you can't spend too long on a drawing. I'll just show you guys some good figure drawing here. So here's some different artists drawing figure drawing. Here are some simple Batman poses. These are by Sean Galloway. He's a comic book artist. But really good squash and stretch in here. You can see the dynamic movement, lots of diagonals, nothing is straight up and down to get a sense of movement. And again, these are all very simple. So there's no facial features in here. There's simplified anatomy, so there's just suggestions of some bones and muscles, but not too much detail. Probably the most detail you get in this one is that hand. But it's all about gain a sense of movement and a sense of action in there. Here's another one. Look at this nice diagonal for this action pose of that leg. Squash and stretch here in the legs. Okay. These are some more Sean Galloway ones. Look how simplified this leg is. It's just a straight shape. But you can see the stretch on the back and the squash there in the front. Squash here. Stretch on that back. Very simplified drawings, but very effective in showing action and movement with the character. This is one of my favorite artists, Claire Windling. She's done comics, she's done art for video games, art for movies, but I just like her sketches. So here's her cat, where you can see squash and stretch and a lot of the same things in drawing animals. So if you guys have pets, dogs or cats, those are a very good thing to draw animals as well, because a lot of the anatomy is the same. They have heads, chest, and hips, but they're just kind of arranged differently. There's another one of hers. Here's another Claire Windling one. So really nice stretch on this back. As you can see, this character's folded forward, so stretch on the back and squash here in the front. So this one is a little bit of a longer pose, so you get some more details in there. And she's such a good artist, she doesn't use photos anymore. She just can make this up from her head. Here's another one of hers. So Claire Windling is someone, I think she's on Instagram, but she's a really good artist to follow. And here's another one of my favorite artists, Heinrich Clay. Oh, this is kind of small, unfortunately. But here he's drawing elephants, but it's basically drawn in poses that people would do. So if you guys ever saw the movie Fantasia, with the scene with the dancing alligators and ice skating elephants and stuff like that, they were inspired by his drawings. It's a nice stretch along the back here and squashed in the front, but dynamic energy and movement. Here's another one at Heinrich Clay's. Not a lot of details here, but good sense of movement and motion. All right, I think that is it for today.
We can use animal for our project, right?
For the project 01, yes, for the storyboard sequence, you can use an animal character. So yeah, if you want to actually tell a story about one of your pets or something, you can do that, or you can change like the character based on your own life. You can change that to an animal character if you want.
Thank you.
Any other general questions on the project that is due on Wednesday next week? Figure drawing questions, drawing challenge questions, anything like that before we go? All right, well, that is it for today. We'll have the same meeting time next Tuesday at 11. And yeah, if you guys want me to look at your work before you turn it in, feel free to send me a message. If you just have like your first, 10 storyboards done and you want me to take a look at it and make suggestions, do that. If you want me to look over your story idea before you start to do any drawing, feel free to email me that. But yeah, just look, I'll send you guys a link and directions for the drawing challenge either later today or early tomorrow to practice some figure drawing. I think I'll have that due on Friday. But yeah, other than that, just let me know if questions come up and just start working on that first project.
Thank you.
Yep, see you guys in a week. I'll leave this open for a minute as you log off if you guys have any individual questions.
Have a nice day.
You too.
Bye.